What's up, everybody? Welcome into this Thursday edition of Pushing the Pile, brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. Make every moment more. I'm Mike Renner, joined today by Bryant McFadden and Kyle Long, and we're breaking down none other than the divisional round matchups to watch. We're going to go game by game, Saturday through Sunday, break down what we're going to look for, what we think decides those games, maybe give some picks, and then maybe give our survivor picks at the end. I already got knocked out last week, spoiler alert. But first, we're going to kick it off with our bold predictions as we do every single Thursday. And so, BMAC, I'm going to do you the honors. You weren't here last week to give your bold prediction, so we want some heat this week. What's your bold prediction for this divisional round?
I got some nice heat. I don't know if some fans might not like this. They might not like it, and some fans will like it. I have the Rams in my bold prediction going to Philly in frigid temperatures, potential snow throughout the entire ball game. Going to Philly and beating the Eagles, getting some get back. Remember, this is a matchup we saw earlier in the year. Saquon Barkley is still running for touchdowns against their said defense, but their defense will be better suited in this matchup. Matthew Stafford will be better. Sean McVay will be a better coach. And my bold prediction is the Rams will go into Philly coming out with a big-time W in the win column, being able to advance to the NFC Championship game. So that's my bold prediction. Rams go into Philly, come out victoriously.
BMAC. I need a little more from you. I need like a why. You're saying it, but I need to be sold on it because I saw this happen last time, 37-20 a few months ago. I need to know why this one's going to be a little different. Why do you think?
Well, the reason, my main why is that Sean McVay is the best coach in the NFC playoffs. Yeah. He's the best coach. His ability to do more with less has really been documented, especially the last two seasons. Being able to get these two Rams teams into the playoffs, he's exceeded the expectation. Not to mention they were once upon a time 1-4. But when you look at the coaching matchup, I think we all would take Sean McVay in this matchup. Yes, he's not coaching the most talented team, but he is an individual that can get his guys to be the best prepared. Not to mention their defensive line. This is a defense. In terms of their confidence, they have more confidence than what we saw earlier in the year. They're playing with great confidence. They're playing with a great physical mentality. And I think they're going to make sure they neutralize and slow down Saquon Barkley. And the last thing I like in this matchup, when you look at the Philadelphia Eagles, is something about Philly. They oftentimes get off to a slow start. It's something about Philly. It seems like there's a disconnect in their offense. Primarily speaking, the passing game. Because I'll tell you this much, Mike, if your offense just played with a pulse and played just a little smarter, you guys would have beat Philly last week. It was more about what Green Bay didn't do compared to what Philly did do. I think they get off to a slow start once again. And like I said, I don't know what's going on. I know they're kind of minimizing any type of issue going on, but the passing game has been a bit stagnant. Jalen Hurts didn't look good. Remember, he missed some time, so he might still be a tad bit rusty in this matchup as well. So if you get up to a slow start against a Sean McVay team, good luck in trying to find a way to make this thing competitive. So those are my.
That's exactly what worries me about this matchup, BMAC, is that we know that Matt Stafford and Sean McVay are going to have a bulletproof first 15. They always start fast. They come out swinging. They're going to hit somebody in the mouth. And Philadelphia, what they've done historically, I'm a guy who lost to Philly in the wild card round. We had what I thought was the toughest defense around, and then we showed up and had to play Fletcher Cox and all those guys. Granted, it's a different unit. When these guys come in wearing green, they always want to play bully ball. And if you can fight fire with fire, and that's what Sean McVay has done for a long time with his group, they punch up at people. You start fast, that Jalen Hurts offense can lag behind a little bit, and then you got to get out of the strength of your team, which is running the ball with Saquon Barkley, and put the game in Jalen Hurts' hands. So I could totally see it. That's what worries me about this matchup. But I love the Eagles in this one, B-Mac. It's one that we obviously can't wait to watch.
I'll say this about the Rams defensive line, and I think you hit the nail on the head there. I can't believe how strong they still are, and the fact that they've gotten better over the course of the season. I thought, with multiple rookie starters, whether it's Jared Verse, Braden Fisk, I'm like, rookie wall. It happens to everyone. They'll tail off down the stretch here, especially that those guys aren't coming off the football field. They're playing hefty snaps. They even get stronger every single week. Jared Verse, my Lord, what he was doing to those Vikings tackles. Tough to watch if you're a Vikings fan, but this Rams defensive line, I think a little bit even of a different animal than the last time they saw each other. All right, Kyle, you're up next. You're on tap. What's your bold prediction for this week?
Okay, there's not like a numerical bold prediction here, but what it is that the Detroit Lions will have their cleanest, most efficient, most explosive offensive showing of the entire season. This has been the culmination of Ben Johnson and Jared Goff and Dan Campbell having the utmost in confidence in their group. And that guy right there on the screen, Amon-Ra St. Brown, obviously going to have a huge playoffs. I see them going out there and having their best offensive performance versus the Commanders. Obviously, there's been question marks about the defense all season long, but they have just been able to say, hold my strong hand. And my strong hand is the offense. And I think they're going to strong arm this Washington Commanders defense, who played a little bit of bully ball against Tampa Bay this past week. But this is one group, unlike the Eagles, that I think are unflappable, and they are not going to blink no matter what. So I got the Detroit Lions. Let's call it 50 points. Let's say that the Detroit Lions are going to put up 50 points at home against the Washington Commanders. And it's going to take that in order to beat this rookie who is just a friggin' psychopath with the game on the line, Jaden Daniels.
Safe to say then you like the over? Because it's a 55.5 point over, which I like the over too, man. I think points are going to be put up on the scoreboard. And I don't put it past the Lions. They have, though, this is a high bar to clear, just so you know, because they went 52 against the Jags earlier this year. They went 47 against the Cowboys earlier this year, and they went 42 against both the Bills and the Seahawks. So they're no strangers to not punting, shall we say. They've had a number of games this year where they just every single time
they could potentially be in a dome through the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
I just want you to think about how important that is for a guy that we've tried to knock off his block, saying this guy is a dome quarterback. Well, they've played so damn well, they're going to be in the dome through New Orleans if they win this thing out. So I've got them starting enormously hot against the Washington Commanders.
I don't doubt it, though, because with the Lions, it seems like in a lot of their wins even, whatever number they need to get to, it seems like they can get to it, right? Like they almost like, how hard do they want to push down on the accelerometer, right? With Ben Johnson, do we really want to attack or do we want to take the foot off the pedal? That's seemingly the only thing that limits them. In this one, as you mentioned, they're going to have to keep the foot on the gas pretty much from snap one to fourth quarter if you've got Jaden Daniels on the other side of the football. So I like it. All right, mine. Oh, you got B-Mac?
What I was going to say about with the Lions, to Kyle's point, they have so many different styles they can play with offensively, and it's kind of hard to really prepare because they can throw it around the yard, create splash plays. They can move the chains more so with a more possession passing game with Amon-Ra St. Brown. You look at the two-headed monster they will have in the backfield and Sonic and Knuckles and Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery. They have so many different styles. It's like you don't know exactly what that script will detail until you actually get on the football field. And as a former defender, it's hard to make those adjustments in game where you already prepared for one thing. They might come out and show you something totally different. So it's the only concern having that bye week, because playoff football is almost like a new season. Will they jump right back into the saddle like we saw what they did against Minnesota? Will it take some time to kind of get things going? But that's the only concern. But in terms of how they play and the personnel and the play calling, that offense is hard to really go against and to prepare against.
Yeah, 100%. All right, mine. Last one here. Lamar Jackson, Baltimore Ravens, against the Buffalo Bills. On the road, I have him going for over 100 yards on the ground. They are going to need to take any training wheels off him in this offense on the ground game and just say, Lamar, if they're overloading against Derrick Henry, we need you pulling it, slipping out the back door. They need him with the ball in his hands as many times as possible running it because it's going to be cold. It's going to be difficult to pass the ball. I don't care who you are. When it's 20 degrees outside, it is just difficult to throw the football consistently, but it's also difficult to tackle when it's 20 degrees outside. And Lamar Jackson specifically, about as difficult to tackle as it gets in the NFL. So I have him not only going over his 52.5, I said that I was redundant, 52.5 rushing yard prop. I'm going way over it, doubling that. Let him go for over 100 in this one.
I love that. He's going to have to do that. And we've talked about the luxury of having a guy like Derrick Henry. and forcing this defense to respect at the mesh point. The game that BMAC plays is the same one I play, but in my mind, it's all about that front seven, especially as it pertains to Derrick Henry, because these guys are going to be vacating their responsibilities in the pass game to ensure that Derrick Henry isn't the one that's going to be running scot-free. But to your point, this is it. This is what we've worked for. We've kept you healthy the whole season, Lamar. You've done a great job of keeping yourself healthy by being smart. But we can be a little bit reckless here. This is a Marvel movie with Josh Allen versus Lamar Jackson. I fully anticipate both these guys understanding the moment, the gravity of the moment, and taking the game into their own hands. I can't wait to watch this performance. It's going to be the MVP of MVP performances.
Yeah, and for both of you guys, in terms of the points you've made, Lamar has to run, and Todd Monken was overly criticized for the lack of running from Lamar Jackson in the AFC Championship game a year ago. So clearly he's understanding, he's learned from his faults. If you look at the game plan a week ago against the Pittsburgh Steelers, remember in the first drive, Lamar had like 4 rushes. I mean, he was taking off. So I wouldn't be surprised to see them implement that more into the game plan against Buffalo, because one thing I know about Baltimore Ravens offensively, they're a better team, better unit when Lamar Jackson is running the football. So I would love to see Lamar Jackson do that, because he really excels and becomes a better player, and their team is better when he's doing that as well.
All right, there's our bold predictions for the divisional round. Just the appetizer, because we got a 4-course meal on tap here of divisional round playoff games. We're going to start with the Texans, Chiefs, previewing the matchups that are going to decide it right after this. The Texans travel to Arrowhead to face the defending champion Kansas City Chiefs this weekend. Last time this happened, 2019 season, Deshaun Watson was the quarterback for the Houston Texans. They ran out to a 24-0 lead, but the Chiefs came back, won 51-31. I think we're going to see a little bit fewer points this time around. I don't know about you guys. I'm going to start with you, Kyle. What matchup is going to decide this game between the Texans and Chiefs?
Well, I think the break was really good for the entire group in Kansas City. I mean, even if the guys on the Chiefs offensive line haven't been on the injury report, B-Mac, you can attest to this. You get some time to rest up some bad knuckles or a wrist, or your shoulder starts to feel a little bit better. You get to recharge and be able to thrust forward into the playoffs with a physicality and, what does Harbaugh say, enthusiasm unknown to mankind. You can find that again. And at the end of the regular season, you get your axe gets dull and you get an opportunity to sharpen it. And who better to swing it at than this edge rush group of the Houston Texans, because that's been the lifeblood of this defense. Obviously, Coach Ryans has the guys on the back end dialed in, and they play a physical brand of football at all levels. But the real winners, the real unicorns, the Warlocks are out there at the defensive end position with Will Anderson and Daniil Hunter. So I think the job for Jawan Taylor and Joe Thuney is going to be the heavyweight matchup that I'll have my eyes on, because it'll allow Patrick Mahomes to do Patrick Mahomes things. I know it's going to be cold at Arrowhead. They're going to be home. They're no stranger to being in this situation. And for CJ Stroud, I mean, he's going to have to go probably match an offense of Kansas City that is as healthy as it's been all season, which is not good news for CJ. But it's going to be a lot of pass pro, a lot of quick game, and just die slow deaths out there at the tackle position against these rushers who are known winners. I think that's going to be the key factor in the game, Mike.
Yeah, Kyle, I'm right there with you. When you look at the Houston Texans, that is their strength, right? The defensive line, the two-headed monster in Daniil Hunter, Will Anderson Jr., they finished with 20-plus sacks. Don't forget about the Nico Autry as well. Look at what Mario Edwards Jr. has done. Collectively speaking, their defensive line, with the depth and experience, they really know how to get after quarterbacks. And if you don't believe me, just go ask Justin Herbert. So they have to give that same impact, but more against Money Pat Mahomes, because he is him. When you look at the first meeting between these two said teams, that was the first game that we saw Pat Mahomes coming, trying to deal with that ankle injury, and we really didn't know exactly what we would get from Pat Mahomes. Well, he showed all of us what type of dog he is in the first drive when he started to make things happen with his ankle. That he was hobbled, but he still gave maximum effort, and that led to a great day for Pat Mahomes with 260 yards, 1 touchdown. He also ran for a touchdown. Actually, the first scoring drive came from Pat Mahomes running, scrambling, and being able to score with his legs. So if you can find a way to slow down Pat Mahomes, touch him up a little bit, hit him, collapse the pocket, have sticky-like coverage like you did against the Chargers, that can give C.J. Stroud the extra possessions that is needed. Because one thing that we're starting to see with the Houston Texans, with their team offensively, they're not as electric as we thought they would be, especially being shorthanded at the pass catcher position, not having Tank Dell, not having Stephon Diggs. The only reliable elite-like player at the wide receiver position is Nico Collins, so it puts more pressure on C.J. Stroud in their offensive line that has been below average, to say the least. So this is all about the defensive front for the Houston Texans. If they can find a way to get after Pat Mahomes, that could be the window of opportunity for them to be able to try to steal one out in Arrowhead.
I could not agree with you guys more. I think this matchup, and it starts here, but then it has like knock-on effects to the second level, because what the Texans have are guys who are ball hawks on the back end, whether that's Derek Stingley Jr. on one side, whether that's Kamari Lassiter on the other side, or whether that's Kalen Bullock at free safety, as we saw against the Miami Dolphins. Like, this is a team that is uniquely built to make that game-changing play when it counts most. So it's going to have to come under pressure, because obviously Pat Mahomes from a clean pocket, it's not like he's going to be just throwing him up for grabs. So you're going to have to force him outside or get in his face. And I want to hear what you think about this, Kyle, because I think if I'm Micah Ryans and I have these two talented edge rushers, I'm saying by any means necessary. A lot of times against Patrick Mahomes, the conventional wisdom is don't let him outside the pocket, right? Make him stay in the pocket. I'm thinking that in this game, because of just kind of the lack of rapport he's had with his wide receivers all season long, the fact that he's only averaging 4.5 yards per attempt when he breaks the pocket this year, I'm trying to just get pressure on him by any means necessary, and then we figure it out from there, because when he's scrambling, I have guys that I trust to go find the football in the air when he's, running to his right, running to his left, and still looking down the football field.
Hey, in theory, that is a tremendous way to get after Patrick Mahomes, but you have to understand that we are now at the point of the season that they call the playoffs, and Mr. Travis Kelce, number 87, he is always the break glass in case of emergency guy for Patrick. And while there have been some instances this year where we said, where's Travis Kelce in the game plan? Why can't we get him the football? Coverage dictates a lot of that. And with the health at the receiver position and the way that Joe Thuney sets inside out, Patrick understands that he has time to step up in the pocket, and I'm not worried about a messy dish in terms of guard, center, guard, because these three will be up for the fight against Danico Autry and the guys on the interior. It all comes down to Travis Kelce and which version of Kelce are we going to see? Does he still have playoff Trav in the tank? Because that is a cure-all for this offense.
Yeah, and Kyle, you're talking about playoff Trav. What about divisional Pat Mahomes? Listen to this mind-blowing stats, these numbers from Pat Mahomes in divisional games. He's 6-0 in divisional games. He's yet to lose a divisional game. His teams have scored 33 points. They've averaged 33 points in those 6 games. He's completed 70% of his passes. He's averaged over 300 yards in those said games. 16 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. I repeat, in divisional games, this man has never thrown an interception in his life. He's had a passer rating of 115 in divisional games. We're not talking about week 4 regular season games. We're talking about in divisional matchups when you're playing against good versus good. Great coaching, great execution, great players. This man has thrown 16 touchdowns and 0 interceptions while averaging over 300 yards through the air. Those are crazy numbers from one player in terms of how good he has been. So you talk about playoff Trav. Yeah, a lot of the things that we've seen from playoff Trav has come from divisional Pat, because he plays lights out in divisional matchups.
The other thing to note here, though, the Texans could win this matchup wholesale and still lose this game, because there's another mismatch on the other side of the football. That is Chris Jones going up against these Texans guards. Texans guards have combined to allow over 60 pressures this season. And oh, by the way, Chris Jones is the best pass rushing DT in the NFL. So it's not just that one, but that's basically
the one. And gets better in the playoffs, too.
That's the one that that the Texans have to win.
Yeah.
Texans have to win that matchup if they have any chance of winning this game. All right, we're going to take a quick break. After that, going to get to the next game on the schedule. Lions, Commanders, the Saturday night show. We're expecting fireworks. Tune in right after this. Lions, Commanders. the Saturday night 8 p.m. game in Detroit. The highest over-under, I believe, of any football game this season, 55.5 points. Vegas is expecting points. We're all expecting points. That means that this game is going to be decided by probably a few different matchups, probably a few different bounces here and there. But B-Mac, what's the one you're tuning into the most in this awesome NFC matchup?
Aaron Glenn, the defensive coordinator for the Detroit Lions. I'm really intrigued to see what kind of game plan he's going to present to the star quarterback in Jayden Daniels. Jayden Daniels is a rookie, but when you watch him play, he looks like a double-digit year vet. He's so cool, collected in the pocket. He's an ultimate playmaker, and you don't want to allow him to have the football with, in a last possession where he needs to score, because he's going to score. He has that mystique about his game. When he gets the football last, it's like you know what is going to happen. You're just waiting for it to happen because he's shown the ability to score and come up big in the clutch. So that is what I'm watching, because when you look at what we witnessed a week ago in Tampa, Todd Bowles, a very, very experienced play caller, had no answer for Jayden Daniels. Most defensive coordinators, they've had no answer for Jayden Daniels as well. His ability to throw the football is so impressive. The accuracy, the precision, how he throws his pass catchers open. And the thing about Jayden Daniels is you cannot prepare for just the improvising. His ability to improvise in the pocket, make people miss, buy time, slippery, and get positive yards really helps them out in totality as an offense. So can we see a suffocating-like defense? Will we see a suffocating-like defense that we saw against the Minnesota Vikings and against Sam Darnold? They really humbled Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold they basically beat Sam Darnold twice because he didn't get over what they did in the final week, and that kind of surfaced in the playoff game this past weekend against the Rams. So that's what I'm watching, because Aaron Glenn has done a great job with whoever has been healthy for him and putting those guys in positions to be successful.
I think that's totally in line with what I'm thinking for the key matchup in this football game, because nobody has really figured out the code to stop Jayden Daniels. And we know that this offense from the Detroit Lions, they're going to come out there humming. It was part of my bold prediction. I said they're going to score 50 points. The more I think about it, 45 is probably the number where I'll land on it. And the thing is, I'm not even afraid to say that Jayden Daniels could match that if given the opportunity. And like you said, B-Mac, if he's got the ball at the end of the game, I'm putting my money on that guy right there, number 5. He has been unbelievable, and I'm no longer going to call him a rookie. He's just a quarterback now. He's not a rookie. He's a great quarterback. But Aaron Glenn, and I would defer to you on this question, B-Mac. If I'm a head coach, I'd go into that defensive coordinator meeting, defensive coordinator office, and I'd say, hey, Aaron, here's what I want you to do. We know that the first turnover or the first mistake that they make on offense is probably going to cost them the game because of the nature of our offense and our ability to score at an astronomical rate. So tell your guys to gamble a little bit. And also, every time that guy runs the football, I want him laid out. I want him laid out. And we had this conversation about Mahomes towing the line on the sideline. He's playing the game. Am I in? Am I out? You can't hit me. Nana, boo-boo. No. We're not playing those childish games. We're going to go take the 15 yards if need be, and hopefully he'll learn his lesson, because we know that the entire offense goes through that guy with the football, the skinny guy, number 5. And if we can tattoo him a couple times, maybe it'll get him to want to sit tight and throw the football instead of running it.
Kyle, to your point, an old school coach once told us as a team, non-quarterbacks only love running when they don't get hit. But if you get hit one good time, just think about, because when we played Little League football, most of us played different positions, and most of us probably ran the football a few times. I know I did. But the very first time I got hit in the mouth, like, whoa, I started second guessing, do I really want to keep doing this? That's why I went and played defense, because I wanted to hit people. I didn't like people hitting me and standing over me and laughing and making cracks about me and my mouthpiece flying everywhere. So to your point, he's a very, very smart runner. But if you get an opportunity to touch him up legally within the rules, take advantage of it.
I am going to be looking forward to this matchup for a couple of reasons. One is that he is so dynamic and he does run so much, right? Like, they are going to utilize him so much. in that running game, and that's just difficult to account for. I don't care who you are, whether the guy's that dynamic at the quarterback position, whether it's holding him in the pocket on scrambles, whether it's trying to track him down on option runs. It just takes very much a team effort and a game plan to do so. And then the other reason being that the Lions like to play man coverage. Their bread and butter is getting up in the face of wide receivers and tracking them down the football field. But when you're playing man coverage as a defensive back or a linebacker, you know who you're not looking at? You're not looking at the quarterback. You're looking at the guy you're trying to guard. And what does that do? That leaves these alleys for Jaden Daniels if he sneaks out of the pocket, because he scrambled not more than anyone else in the NFL this year. He scrambled more than anyone else in NFL history, at least modern NFL history, since they started tracking that stat. The guy is dynamic, and he's going to utilize it. So, B-Mac, what do you do as a defensive coordinator then? Do you spy him? Do you play more zone? What's your adjustment to deal with a guy who's that dynamic as a runner?
You got to take your chances when you play man, because to your point, they're a man defense.
Yep.
So I highly don't expect Aaron Glenn to not utilize and call his bread and butter. But you got to take strategic chances, and when you do it, because if you do not, he takes off and run. Because when we play man coverage, the first thing we do, we have our backs turned and we're following whoever it is we're covering. We don't see what's happening in the pocket. But also, too, one thing I learned about Aaron Glenn and how he calls his play calling sheet, he loves to manipulate what the quarterback sees. Because even if he's playing man, he loves to make it look like it's something else. And that's what we saw that gave Sam Darnold issues. Sam was anticipating one coverage, and then at the blink of an eye, they rolled into something else. And by that time, Kyle, you know how important it is for quarterbacks to call out the protection to the offensive line. With the play clock, you don't have enough time to do that. So these are things I expect to see. But, Mike, Aaron Glenn is going to call man because that's their bread and butter. But he's going to be very, very smart and take his chances. And when he does, because to your point, Jaden Daniels will take off at any given time. And he is the type of runner, if he has a window, he can take it 50 or 60 yards because of his speed and his athleticism.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for the Commanders is just don't fall behind, right? Because if you're down a couple scores in this one, all of a sudden that rushing threat, they ain't going to respect it nearly as much as they would have otherwise. So score early, or at least don't let the Lions score early and keep it a tight one. Very much looking forward to this one, though. I think that 55.5, as Kyle alluded to, I think it's a little too low. I think we see a shootout, and it's been a while. It's been a while since we've had one of those, unfortunately, in the NFL. All right, we're going to take a quick break. After that, going to get to Rams, Eagles, rematch of a game we saw earlier this year. We're going to preview the matchups to watch in that one right after this. The Rams travel to Philly, face the Eagles in a rematch of a game we saw earlier this year. That one was in LA, and that was the one where Saquon Barkley went for over 250, MVP chance, post-game. Everyone wanted him at the top of their MVP rankings, and rightfully so. The guy was cooking in that one, and that's obviously, to me, the biggest matchup. So, Kyle, I'm going to start with you. How do we think the Rams fare or stand any sort of chance not having a repeat affair of what we saw in that 37-20 blowout?
Well, they need to start fast, and B-Mac alluded to this earlier, brilliantly put. He said, look, don't let this Rams team start fast, because if the Rams team starts fast, you get out of your multidimensional superpower with Saquon Barkley, and you have to throw the football, and you've got to rely on Jalen Hurts and this incongruent receiver room. Seemingly, the passing game has not been solved in Philadelphia, and they have had the luxury of just being able to lean on that offensive line and Saquon Barkley. And we often say you can have an on-schedule offense with a really good offensive line, but if you don't have that explosive back, you're never going to get those explosive plays. Well, they have the catch-22, the perfect situation. From Lane Johnson to Jordan Mailata, these guys across the line of scrimmage have been dominant. So I expect that the Eagles will be able to start fast. They just better hope that they don't elect to receive the second half kickoff. Rams get the ball first. Matt Stafford goes down the field in that inclement weather. Because Sean McVay's team, they're not going to blink. They're going to come ready to go. They're going to come try to play bully ball. That's the one way you got to play against Philadelphia. You got to play bully ball. So I anticipate both lines of scrimmage being up for this game. But you got to start fast if you're the Rams, or else you fall in that Saquon-sized hole.
Yeah, I'm aligned with you, Kyle. The Rams' defensive unit, especially the guys that put their hand in the dirt. This is the matchup that I'm watching because if you allow Saquon Barkley to do a piece of what he did in the first meeting, good luck. You're going home. Vacation starts now. But if they can find a way to have the success they had, similar to what we saw against the Minnesota Vikings, that would help the other two levels of their defense out. Because when you look at the secondary, A.J. Brown in the first meeting went for over 100 yards. You know, they had a balanced attack going for Philly that led to them scoring 30-plus points and, most importantly, winning in the first matchup against the Rams. But if you can find a way to slow down one element of the offense and make them more predictable, that helps the entire defense out. And to your point about the potential climate concerns, snow, cold, that actually could help the Rams more so than helping the Eagles offensively, because the thing about Saquon Barkley, he's not a one-cut runner. He's a guy that likes to cut back sometimes, slow play things and use his patience and then take off. That potential snow could maybe slow down Saquon Barkley a tad bit and actually kind of neutralize and even out the playing field a little bit for the defenders, especially the defensive line unit for the Rams. So this is the matchup that I'm watching. And the last thing I say, the first matchup, when I rewatched that tape, I really looked at that game and I witnessed the experience that the Eagles had on their offensive line played a big part in their success against the youthful movement the Rams had on their defensive line. So let's see how much learning the guys like Braden Fitz, Derek Verse, Kobe Young, Brian Turner learn from the first meeting going into this next matchup against the Eagles, because we know that's been one of the more stronger units in the National Football League, the offensive line for the Eagles.
Yeah, I'm curious, Kyle, your thoughts on the best strategy for the Rams and their defensive front going against the Eagles offensive line, because in that game, Saquon had runs of 70 yards and 72 yards for touchdowns. But those both came against heavy boxes. And that's kind of what the sort of, unfortunate part of really selling out to stop the run is if you still allow a guy a crease, well, there's no one on the back end or one guy on the back end to go track down one Saquon Barkley. Whereas if you kind of play a little softer, have two high safeties, things of that nature, yeah, maybe you allow runs of 4 or 5 yards, but then you have multiple guys on the back end. Maybe you don't give up those massive plays that we saw the first time around. So if you're the Rams defense, are you allowing them to really kind of get those short yard gains early and often, or are you really selling out and saying, hey, either we die by the explosive play or we win by the explosive play in this one?
Well, one thing that I love having in my back pocket as an offensive lineman is that a lot of our run plays involve combination blocks, double teams, backside, front side, center and guard tackle, tackle tight end. If you put more bigs on the field, there's going to be more chances for you to win against one-on-one in the run. And the onus is then on the defense in terms of gap control, but the offense in terms of being perfect play in, play out. What you saw there in that graphic was Saquon Barkley leads the National Football League in yards before contact. It's no surprise there. They have a fantastic offensive line, particularly in the double teams, both front and backside. But if you force these guys to play that 5-0 style pass protection in the run game, I can see it being a steeper hill to climb for this offensive line. Granted, still overmatched the defensive line of the Rams would be. It's a tougher fight to fight.
I do think, though, the Rams, just from like just when they line up perspective, and we saw it last time, this Eagles front is outweighing everybody by like 30 plus pounds. The Rams are a slightly built defensive line. Their DTs are sub 300 pounds. Byron Young is barely scraping 250. Jared Verse is really the only guy who you trust to go toe to toe. And it's like he's going up against the most physical tackle duo in the NFL. It's like he can't win those matchups. He can hold their own, but you're going to need someone to win their matchups. And I just don't think, unless they really try to create havoc, but
stunts and pirates, yeah. Pirates and stunts is what, if you're going to line up in your base alignment, maybe you can roll a safety down, bring that nickel who's capped, maybe inside leverage on that slot guy, fire him off the edge, cross face with the defensive end and the tackle, create chaos. That's really the only thing you can do against this unit. It's just, in Jaws, they said, we're going to need a bigger boat. Well, we're going to need a few bigger defensive linemen, or we can cause chaos.
All right, B-Mac, I'm the last question here, and then we'll get to break. Jalen Hurts, say they do shut down the run. Say he's not a factor in the running game either, and it does come down to him to pass with this duo of Devontae Smith, A.J. Brown. What's our confidence level that that's still a winning game plan for the Philadelphia Eagles?
My confidence level is pretty high because that is an issue. That has been an issue for the Rams, the secondary play. They've been vulnerable in that element of their defense. And to your point, Mike, the personnel is there for Philly. It's not like they're lacking personnel in terms of why there's been a disconnect or lack of rhythm, because they have dudes. We just haven't seen the chemistry. Maybe that was because Jalen Hurts missed the final 2 weeks of the season. You know, there could have been some rust there. But if he needs to throw the football more so, I believe he can do it because the guys he's throwing the football to are high-level players. High-level players, you know what I mean? And also having Dallas Goedert back in the lineup as well really helps because, you know, he's like that insurance policy for their offense. If anything else breaks down, you can always rely on him. And we saw how big he showed up for them against the first meeting in the playoffs against the Packers.
Can't wait to watch, and we'll see if weather is a factor in this one. Temperatures in the low 30s to high 20s by game time, possible snow, possible rain. The elements. We can't wait. All right, next up, we got the Ravens, Bills, the game everyone's been waiting for. Sunday night, we're going to preview the matchups to watch right after this. Ravens at Bills, Sunday night, Lamar versus Josh Allen. So many intriguing matchups in this one, so much intrigue, but we've seen this one before. In September, the Ravens won, going away, 35-10. That's why maybe they're favored in this one by 1.5 points. Kyle, I'm going to start with you. Which matchup are you looking for that could decide this outcome?
All right. So I think it was about a year and a half ago, I was talking to my older brother, Chris, and I was talking to him about his two young boys, and they weren't quite old enough to play football yet. And he said, well, you know, I'm getting Waylon, his eldest, into football, and I've got him watching just Matt Milano highlights on YouTube. And I think that Matt Milano's absence during the preseason from this defense, from that locker room, from their culture, led me to believe that this was not going to be a Super Bowl contender. But lo and behold, Josh Allen has put the team on his back. Matt Milano and the Cavalry has arrived for this defense, and it's going to be Derrick Henry versus Matt Milano. And, you know, you need to have not only someone who's physically gifted enough, but somebody who is willing to go do the dirty work when you're playing against Derrick Henry. And at these mesh points, you know, your eyes have to be right all the time. And I think the easiest way to give Matt Milano the green light to go hunt down his prey, which is probably the biggest, you know, the biggest game he could ever have, is Derrick Henry. So throughout the course of this game, it's Derrick Henry versus Matt Milano within the tackle box. And if Matt Milano's read is to play the keep, it's Lamar Jackson getting to that first down marker and Matt Milano running his tail off to try to get Lamar cut off at the pass. That's what I can't wait to watch.
Hey, Kyle, I actually have the same matchup because Matt Milano did not participate in the first meeting against Baltimore. Derrick Henry just had his way against their defense. He had 199 yards on 24 carries. And you see how important Matt Milano is. When he is in the lineup, he's like the quarterback for their defense. He makes the calls, makes the adjustments. And it's something about the morale. It feels different when he's in the lineup. So I'm right there with you. So for sake of argument, I'll throw out another matchup that I'm looking forward to see, you know, flourish in this ball game. Which pass catcher is going to show up in the passing game for Josh Allen? Because if you look at what he's done, he's been a great quarterback in distributing to the who's of who, right? He doesn't have that one reliable guy to rely on. But one thing we've learned with Baltimore, since moving Kyle Hamilton back to his post area spot, their secondary has been better. Marlon Humphrey hasn't been a true lockdown defender. Wiggins has really grown in the defense as well. So they've done a great job in keeping the roof on the house, to say the least, not allowing any splash plays. And we know how great Josh Allen has been. But in critical moments of this ball game, it's a 3rd and 8, 3rd and 9. You got to move the chains. Who is going to show up for the Buffalo Bills in the passing game? Because till this point, you can't really identify one guy. because it's been a little sprinkle of this player, a little sprinkle of that player. But in moments like in playoff football, you need to have that guy you can rely on to be able to move the chain. So that's a matchup, because if you look at just the musical chairs at that position, it could be this guy on one game day, this guy on another day. We don't really know who can be identified as the ultimate playmaker in the passing game for the Bills.
I 100% agree with both of you guys.
Yeah, exactly.
Because the very first matchup, those were what decided it. For the Bills, obviously, they couldn't stop Derrick Henry. And for the Ravens, they locked down those Bills wide receivers. They were playing man coverage in their face, and Josh Allen had nowhere to go. But why, if you're a Bills fan, and there's a lot of hope for this one, it's not only Matt Milano that's here that wasn't there the first time. There's Amari Cooper on the offense side of the ball, who is a guy who can beat man coverage. He may not get featured in the offense, but if you got one-on-ones across the board, you can trust that he's probably going to win his matchup. And then also on your defense, you have Terrell Bernard, the other linebacker who wasn't there, and you have Teron Johnson, the slot corner, who didn't play the first time around. So you have a lot of pieces that make you think you'll have a better chance this time around. But the one thing that I keep going back to, especially with the matchup Kyle highlighted, is that Matt Milano's 223 pounds. Terrell Bernard's 225 pounds. Teron Johnson's 192 pounds. This is a defense that relies on trying to create havoc to stop the run. And if that's not the case, if they don't know necessarily where to go, if you got option runs, and if you're really holding them, if they're frozen at the second level, and Derrick Henry's coming on you with a full head of speed, Kyle, I don't know if I trust even Matt Milano with that Peck that's still getting hammered.
B-Mac said he got hit in Pee Wee football and it switched him to defense. I had the same experience, so I was just like, well, I'm too fat to chase tight ends and receivers, so I'm going to go play offensive line so I can do the hitting. The matchup, in my opinion, outside of the Derrick Henry Milano one, which is going to be much advertised and it's going to be must-see TV, is the boring stuff. It's Aaron Cromer's offensive line, which we've talked about the entire season, and James Cook, and the ability for Joe Brady and this offense to control not only the line of scrimmage, but to control that clock, time of possession. It's going to be very cold. Our guy Lamar Jackson, he's from down here in South Florida. I almost had to put a hoodie on when I went out this morning, and it was about 65 degrees. In no way am I questioning his toughness, but Buffalo, for any human being, is cold. Keep him on the sideline, keep his heart rate down, and hope to God that somehow slows down his offensive attack. So James Cook and the offensive line.
And if it snows or if it's snowing during the game, that would help the defenders on the defensive side of Buffalo, because that would make Derrick Henry take those Peter-Patter steps, those little choppy steps, because he has to gather himself because of the traction or the lack thereof on that turf with the snow. Because you remember when they played Christian McCaffrey in the 49ers, and Christian kind of had to slow things down a little bit because the traction before leaving that ball game was a bit, was difficult. And if you're not familiar with playing in that type of those conditions, it can be a big adjustment for you. And I think that would be great for the defenders for Buffalo. If there is snow, you don't have to worry about that train getting at its top speed as fast as he can in normal conditions.
I am hoping it's snow. I think that'd be a very fun cap to this divisional round. And let's cap this show with a little bit of Survivor pick. We got less than a minute left here. I lost last week. I picked the Vikings. I had the last pick, though. Leger hit with the Eagles. You hit with the Ravens, Kyle. So, Kyle, who you got this week? You can't pick the Ravens since you won last week. Who you got this week?
I'm going to take the Philadelphia Eagles at home against the Rams. Come on now. Go Birds.
B-Mac?
I'm taking Baltimore. My one time to pick them. I'm picking them right now.
Ooh, not even going with KC, the second biggest favorite of the weekend, or Detroit, the biggest favorite.
I'm saving Kansas City.
That's smart. I mean, you got to balance long-term strategy and not get knocked out the way I unfortunately did in the first week of the postseason. Can't wait for this divisional round weekend, and can't wait for you guys to join us next Monday when we're back with Matt Ryan breaking it all down, 1 p.m. Eastern. Until then, hope you guys enjoyed it, and keep pushing.
Peace.